All right, welcome to our presentation on basic revenue estimating. I'm Betsy Knotts, the Director of the Division of Local Government Finance. I'm here today to talk about a new revenue estimating tool that we are providing to our local governments. This new tool will be posted on our website, so it can be accessed at any time. As always, if while you're using it you have a question, please feel free to reach out to your regional analyst. They're shown here on the slide. They've got their emails and their direct lines. They're going to be familiar with this tool and able to help you in any way you need. All right, so let's dive in. These are the different components of the estimator. The focus of this tool is general fund revenue estimating. We've listed the most common general fund revenues on the screen. You see property taxes, state shared revenues, local option sales tax collections, fines and fees, and other revenues. We all know there are some distinctions between revenue streams depending on the type of government, but our tool only covers these basic revenue streams so that most city and counties are covered. So first up, the beloved property tax. Prior to estimating your property taxes, there are a few items that you need to collect. First, the total assessed value, which can be found on the Comptroller's website. So you go to cot.tn.gov and you're going to scroll to Office Functions and click on Property Assessments, and then go to their Resources page. The link is on the screen here, but sometimes the link's so long it's easier just to explain how to get it. And then go to the Tax Aggregate Report. On the Tax Aggregate Report, you'll be able to find the total assessed value for your jurisdiction. You'll see on the slide, we've circled it, it's in the last column all the way to the right. This is the total of your real, personal, and public utility assessments. In other words, this is your tax base for your jurisdiction. So you need that number. You also need to get your proposed tax rate or your adopted tax rate, as well as your historical property tax collection rate. This could range from 90% to 97%, depending on how your collections have panned out in the last few years. Another helpful tip is to contact your assessor regarding any estimated impact of property tax appeals on your property tax estimates. In an ideal world, the assessor will be working closely with the trustee to make sure only tax revenues on the uncontested portion of the values that are being appealed are being deposited. Because if not, and an appeal is pending for many years, and then let's say it's finally resolved and it's resolved in favor of the taxpayer, the local government could be penalized and not ready for that financially. As a finance director, it's good to make sure you're working closely with your assessor and local trustee so you don't get blindsided when appeals are resolved not in favor of the government. I always say appeals are a normal part of the property tax process. So don't live in fear of them or fight them to the death. The best thing to do is to manage them and resolve them as promptly as you can. So here's a snip of the property tax component of our new estimator tool. And now that you've collected those items, we're going to go ahead and estimate your taxes. The basic equation is total assessed value, which we got from that tax aggregate report that I described in the prior slide, divided by 100 and then multiplied by the tax rate. And then once you have that number, you multiply it by your historic collections. Our tool will do those formulas for you, so let's go ahead and just look at the example on the screen. We keyed 3 example values into the yellow cells. So you'll notice on each of these components, when there's a yellow cell, that is the area where you need to manually input your numbers. And when you see a shaded blue cell, that's usually the estimate that you'll use for your budget. So here, we entered the total assessed value as a whole number. So you can see it on the screen. It's $125,521,731. So there's your whole number. That is your tax base. Then we added the property tax rate, including decimal and cents. So in this hypothetical jurisdiction, it's $2.15. And then we added the historic collection rate. Now you do have to enter this as a decimal, so I entered 0.97 and then hit enter and it turned it into 97% for me. And after you've done that, it will do the rest for you. So you can see the estimated collections for this jurisdiction are $2,617,755.70. So for those governments that have a split tax rate, so they have multiple funds with different tax rates for those funds, we also have a multi-fund calculator that's on the same tab as the property tax tool. All right, next up, state shared revenues. The best advice we can give you is to visit our confirmation page. So you can see the link there on the screen. It is housed in the local government audit section of the Comptroller's website. The confirmation page is great. It gives you a 5-year history of all sorts of revenue receipts for your jurisdiction, including state shared revenues. After you've looked at that, we highly recommend you reach out to your MTAS or CTAS consultant to get some advice on how to estimate your state shared revenues for the upcoming fiscal year. Luckily, cities have an added benefit currently. MTAS has done all the hard work for them. They estimate a portion of the state shared taxes based on population for every city in the state of Tennessee. So we went ahead and added their work to our tool, and we can look at it briefly. So here we are. On the right side, you'll see that's MTAS's estimates. It's based on per capita or per person. I will note that you could use this as a county as well if you are able to come up with a per person estimate on your own. And our calculator is very simple. You just enter the estimates that MTAS has given you into the yellow cells, as well as your population, and it's just a simple multiplication, and it will give you what your upcoming estimates for state shared revenues will be. All right, so we've made it to sales tax estimating. This is what our office got the most questions about last budget season due to the onset of the pandemic and all the unknowns at that time. So here's a tool to help you this budget season. And the items you need to estimate your sales tax collections. Pretty straightforward. Number one is a general understanding of your city or county. Sometimes we forget, but that is a part of doing a good estimate. Knowing what new development has moved into your jurisdiction. Knowing what is potentially closing. You also need to get your last several years of audits. That has the best data available. And last but not least, the last 12 months of sales tax deposit amounts. So I've learned recently that Department of Revenue has this great online source called the Revenue External Portal, which most governments are probably more familiar with than I am. But you should be able to log in, and I'll show you, here's what it looks like. You log into this site, and you can actually get monthly detail reports for different revenue streams. So you can see the example on the screen is January of 2021, the local option sales tax for Davidson County. So this is a great resource that's out there already that you should have access for. This is an excerpt from an audit. It's going to give you the local sales tax you'll see and the actual collected in that fiscal year. So obviously when you're estimating your budget revenues, you don't always have an audit available for the prior year. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And so you'll collect as many of these as you can. All right, so you take those amounts and you input them again into the revenue estimating tool. And this is going to be on the sales tax tab. And like the other components I've showed you, everything in yellow needs to be manually input. So starting on the left, you're going to input your sales tax receipts from the Department of Revenue's website. So we looked at the Revenue External Portal. That's where you'll go get that information. Now, of course, you may not have everything, so that you're going to have to estimate the last few months of that fiscal year. And we recommend just using the last year's collections, which you should also be able to get from the Revenue External Portal. Next, you input your audit data. So here you can see we input $270,989 for fiscal year 15. And next to it is $274,207 for fiscal year 16, so on and so forth. So those are from your audits that you collected. You enter that amount. And last but not least, you need to enter your estimated growth based on the trends shown in your area. So you'll see the gray cells beneath like year 2016, 2017, 18, 19. Those are your year-over-year growth percentages. So you can see in this example, there was likely some new development that came into that jurisdiction in 2017 because the growth was about 17% from 17 to 18. But you can see that overall, if you just took an average, you would get an incorrect kind of growth percentage if there's no new growth happening in your area this fiscal year. And so it's good to know your area, see the trends, and then put in a growth estimate that you think is accurate. We, of course, recommend conservative growth estimates because if your revenues end up coming in a little bit higher, you can always build up your fund balance, which is always a good thing for governments. And we always explain that GFOA recommends at least 16% in your fund balance. So 16% of your expenditures saved up in your fund balance. It's about 2 months. So after you've done that, it is going to auto-generate your estimate for 2022. So based on that growth percentage, the tool spat out, I think, 345,336. So there you go. That's what you'll use for your sales tax estimate in your budget. Now this is great. Right below the estimate chart is an illustration that will auto-create. So as you're entering your data, this chart will show up. And it simply shows you the sales tax trend in your area. So the blue is the actual sales tax collections that you put onto that, into the tool. The red is a linear statistical line that's predicting growth for you, also known as a linear trend line. So in this example, our estimate, the blue, is lower than the linear trend. But remember, you know your government better than Excel does. So it's always great. You can use this chart as a check on your estimate to see if you're being overly conservative or overly liberal with your estimate. It's also really handy to bring to your governing bodies so they can understand your rationale for your estimates. So the next component is very similar to the sales tax tab, but it's for fines and fees. The first step is to enter the amount of fees from the audits of 2015 through 2020. On this example, you'll see in the yellow cells along the top. Second, you need to enter the monthly fee receipts for your current fiscal year. Then enter prior year data for the remaining months. So you'll see those in green at the bottom of the screen. Okay, same as the sales tax tool, the gray percentages in row 4 are the year-over-year growth for each year after 2015. So same as the sales tax tool, for instance, the first gray cell here under 2016 is showing you the growth from 15 to 16. Finally, it's time to estimate the 2022 receipts by reviewing the growth and entering your forecasted growth rate into the yellow cell all the way to the right. And then after you've done that, the tool will automatically calculate your 2022 estimated fee amount. And again, like the sales tax tool, it's going to auto-create a chart underneath so you can check your work. Again, the blue line is your actual fees collected, and the red is a linear prediction of growth in your jurisdiction. So to wrap up, the estimator tool is available on our website. Make sure to gather your needed information and data first. The estimator will only display data you will need to decide on a growth rate based on your local government's history. The estimator has a tab for other revenues that you can copy for as many revenues as you need to estimate. The provided charts make a great addition to your board packet. So I'll say it again, the revenue estimating tool is available for you to download. It's on our website. Go to the highlighted link on the screen. If you have trouble finding it or downloading it, please feel free to reach out to your dedicated analyst. They will be happy to help you. And remember, when you file your budget package with LGF, please email it to lgf@cot.tn.gov. No hard copies are required. And again, here's our contact information. We're here to help you, so reach out anytime you need us. Thanks so much.